Well, thanks a lot. Now I'm really glad, as actually now Slovenia is the launch of two events at the same time. So as said earlier, the first launch for the open innovation discussion here, and also the beginning of the roadshow that we are going to have in member states, but also in associated countries, introducing the European Innovation Council. Now, as already discussed this morning, innovation is clearly central to Europe's ability to generate new jobs and economic growth in the coming years, but also to tackle the major challenges that we are facing, like climate change, health, energy, food security. And clearly, without productivity growth, this was also mentioned, that we are lagging behind in productivity growth, and some of our competitors, particularly the US. Clearly, the main source for productivity growth in advanced economies is the research and innovation, and it accounts for an estimated 60 to 80% of total economic growth in recent years. That's why we clearly need to continue to invest in research and innovation in order to drive prosperity and to compete with major economies in the world. Now, very shortly, what is actually then holding back European innovation? So when we look at the innovation performance, then we can see that there is lack of breakthrough and disruptive innovations that create new markets. Then there is also the financing gap between research and development grants and then private investments for scaling up innovative startups. And even if we have many national and local ecosystems, we heard a bit also about the Slovenian one in the first session, we have to admit that it's still fragmented at the European level. Now, and there is also the question, who will lead the next wave of breakthrough and disruptive innovation? Now, first, let's look back. And to see which were clearly these innovations were in the past. These were the EU and US who were in the lead. Let's say the car, electricity, synthetic chemicals, telecoms, well, also in the airplanes, we share that. Now, in the currently, what we've seen that it's actually, unfortunately, US is more in the lead than Europe and Asia. We are rather following, like in the GPS and digital platforms, internet, smartphone, the cloud, blockchain, social media. And now the question is, who leads then the next wave of breakthrough and disruptive innovations, which are already there, but not yet translated into really to the markets, like hydrogen and fuel cells. They are already there for quite a while, but we haven't been able yet actually to introduce them on a large scale into our economies. New batteries, partially already there, but still we need to look for new solutions, how to make them cheaper so that they are also economically viable. Autonomous vehicles was already mentioned here, 3D printing, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, graphene, and so on. Clearly, we still have a chance in order to be actually also the leaders in putting these new breakthrough innovations, bringing those into the markets. There is also the financing cap. If we compare how much venture capital the US is investing and how much these are the red bars and the blue ones are for the EU, you see that clearly during the economic recession 2009, and in the aftermath there was a decline, but the US has really been very quick to pick it up, and particularly for the last 3 years, the increase in venture capital has been really significant. Now, what is also something which we have to take into account is that European bankers, but also investors, are too risk averse. They are not inclined to invest in high-risk projects. And this is actually where also the public sector needs to come in order to share the risks, in order to really also take some of the burden and actually attract the investors. And this is clearly something that we are going to discuss under the European Innovation Council, which will support the most talented innovators, but also spread awareness to encourage private investors to support the scale up. Now, but before going to show how we are going to do that, there is also here another slide which actually shows the fast-growing innovative companies, the so-called unicorns, which are the tech startups that reaches $1 billion market value. And you can see, well, where these biggest bubbles have been created. Clearly, US is leading there, followed by Asia, so Europe is too modest, and now even Africa is coming and picking up. Also, as I mentioned, that we have in Europe actually rich tech ecosystem, and you can also see where are the biggest bubbles where it's concentrating, but unfortunately they are not yet interconnected enough in order to reach their full potential. So this is also one of the challenges which we will clearly address in Horizon Europe program. So what is the European Innovation Council about to do? During the break, also the journalist asked me, yes, but for a startup company, for an SME, how to find the right instruments. There seem to be a lot of instruments. How to find the right instruments for myself. Now, what we're actually doing here is creating a one-stop shop for breakthrough and disruptive innovators, which would be open to all innovators in any field at any time. And it will will be addressing the highest potential innovators, and these will be selected on the basis of ideas and teams. This is always also something which people are always really threatened, is that, well, there will be huge bureaucratic systems, huge documents that I need to fill in. But here, the decisions are based not on who writes the best project proposal, but actually testing the innovators, testing their ideas, whether they clearly have the ideas which are disruptive, which are innovative, market creating, but also whether they have the teams who will be the ones who can actually implement those ideas. And this is actually something that we have been testing a while with the SME instrument, which has been a good basis for the future EIC, and now with the EIC pilot. And I've attended as an observer of one of the sessions where there was the assessment of the health projects. And clearly the companies who presented the ideas were grilled very, very carefully, but also in the panel there were the greatest experts in their field, those who were able to clearly, for instance, to assess whether these are the new ideas in the health sector, those who are able to assess the economic financial viability of that, then also the potential to bring those ideas to the market, actually to assess the different sides of that. And this is also clearly the idea behind also for the EIC. Now, what it will also create is clearly agile funding. Agile funding from idea to investment. And the colleagues will then speak in more detail about the two instruments for the EIC: Pathfinder grants and accelerator funding, because the Pathfinder is for advanced research on emerging technologies, and accelerator funding will address innovative startups. And finally, what I'd also like to focus and underline here, and this was also one of the questions from the audience, is the idea to build ecosystem and communities, to bring together the ecosystems that we already have in member states, and then to provide access also to mentoring, advisory services, and to knowledge partners, European Innovation EIT. But also to provide expert program for managers in order to engage with projects and communities so that they will be better prepared. How then to really prepare the project proposals which will have a chance to be successful. And finally, also the prizes for breakthrough technologies. Now, here is a quote which I'd like to read out. It's a quote by our Commissioner, Carlos Moedas, which was actually the beginning for the EIC, so to speak, the EIC story. When he said back in June 2015 that Europe does not yet have a world-class scheme to support the very best innovators in the way that the European Research Council in the global reference for supporting excellent science. So he mentioned that he would like to take stock of the various schemes to support innovation and SMEs under Horizon 2020, to look at the best practices and then to design a new innovation council. But we didn't do that alone. Clearly, this was designed together with the leading innovators. So soon after the idea was born, a fantastic group of innovators, entrepreneurs, business angels, venture capitalists, and CEOs were brought together into the Commission expert group supporting European innovation. And actually one of those, Jana Kolar, was also at the panel when we had the previous event in Slovenia last autumn, when we discussed the future of Horizon Europe. So the idea then was also backed by EU leaders last year, and then also more recently it was also referred to in the Franco-German Manifesto for European Industrial Policy. Now, you are clearly also interested how much money we are going to have in this in the European in this instrument. I said in 2018 we already first started testing the EIC pilot. And during that phase, we supported 240 innovative companies who received more than 700 million through the EIC pilot. Now there is a decision to have over 2 billion for this year and for next year in order to continue to test the way towards Horizon Europe. So a few words about the first phase, which was launched last year. So it already brought together relevant Horizon 2020 schemes, SME instrument that I already mentioned, Fast Track to Innovation, FED Open and prizes. It also introduced open support for startups and SMEs, no predefined schemes, totally bottom up. It also introduced interviews with experienced innovators, selecting SMEs for funding, as I described to you, and also launching major prizes for breakthrough innovations, like low-cost space launcher, 10 million prize, well, really significant amounts. It also, well, it was very popular, as you see, 6,000 applications received for startups or SMEs for SME grant phase 2. Then there was a majority combined different fields, digital, energy, manufacturing, health, and also the 250 awarded funding. Actually, which is also good news for the innovators, for SMEs, is that it's really a fast process. So grant awarded in under 4 months, and budget I already mentioned to you. Now, what is new in the second phase? First of all, increased budget, as already mentioned, but also the introduction of pilot accelerator. You will hear more about that, which will apply for blended finance, that is combining grant and equity. Also introduction of pilot Pathfinder with 6 strategic emerging technologies. This is more top-down because there's also the areas which are identified: human-centric artificial intelligence, novel medical devices, zero-emission energy generations, and other. Which we are also going to introduce is new EIC advisory board, namely bringing leading innovators for ongoing design, but also for the implementation. And also we plan to recruit the first EIC program managers. And then it will be fully fledged under Horizon Europe, starting in 2021, with a proposed budget of 10 billion. That's for this pillar, the third pillar. And there will be also dedicated governance with EIC President and Advisory Board, where we clearly attract the most respected, also the innovators coming from different areas. It will also have more flexible rules for funding. And what is also important here is that even if you get the grant, or also even if you get also the blended finance of equity, there is no guarantee. There is still, because we are investing into high-risk projects, there is no guarantee that these will be the ones that will actually get to the markets. So it's also the possibility to stop or to reorient, which I think it's also the beauty of this instrument. So that's not, if you start to put public money, then it doesn't mean that you need to continue if it's not justified. But it's also will be linked to Invest EU. So then there will be full accelerator funding with both grant and blended finance, full Pathfinder scheme, but also fast-track access to Horizon grant holders. But also, which is important, because there was also the question how we relate also to the innovation policies of member states. And clearly it addresses also these, will create EIC forum with member states, member state innovation agencies. But here, what I think is important, that this is not only to discuss how to finance, but if we see what are actually the impediments for the innovative companies to scale up in Europe, it's not only that there is not enough venture capital, there is not access to finance, but even if we have the European single market, we have to acknowledge that for scaling up for innovating solutions, you still face quite a few market barriers. Market barriers say if you'd like to introduce a self-driving car, try to test it. in different member states. It won't be possible. It will be possible in some, but not in the others. Also, if you'd like to introduce innovative services, you may face barriers. And I'd like to just conclude with the story which is actually illustrating my experience yesterday. Arriving in the airport and taking a taxi with my colleague Christian Schreiber. We had to pay 60 euros, more than 60 euros, to get from the airport to the city center to the hotel, and then explained at length why we need to pay such an amount. Then I asked, but do you have Uber here? No, it's illegal here. Okay, I can give you an example from another member state, which I know best, as I say in the Commission, where that is Estonia. And we have one of the unicorns, which is unicorn in Estonia, but also European unicorns, which is the company Taxify, which has now been renamed Bolt. You can say that this is the European Uber. But they are now active, they were founded in 2017, and they are now active in 30 countries and in more than 50 cities. Global, almost all continents. But not in too many European cities, because, like here, in many cities it's illegal to have an app-based solution. But what is the result? The result is that clearly there are no benefits for the travelers. There might be benefits for the incumbent companies, but not for the innovators. When you go to Tallinn, then you can order whatever taxi. They're actually free app-based taxis, and the ordinary ones. You never need to wait more than 5 minutes, and you never pay more than 15 euros wherever you get from the city center. So that's when you are open to innovation and new solutions, that's what you can get as the citizens. And now that's all on the slides, and I'd like to conclude with a short video, and then we can already start with the next presentations and the questions and answers. Thanks a lot.
What we want is to pick the people that are willing to do things. And so I think that the EIC is definitely not more than that. It's about freedom of the innovator at the center.
That's when we applied for the EU funding, because what we saw is that, great, if we do everything that we focus, we can potentially take this product to the market, but we will be completely stagnated for the future. What we applied for is money to make it so that we can bring this in the perfect condition to the market, not barely, but perfectly.